Bill slumps into his bunk. Through the porthole, Australia beckons, his first foreign shore, yet he's confined to the ship while his crewmates waste their shore leave at the nearest pub. With a frustrated sigh, he grabs his pen and begins to write. And you're probably asking, what was Bill writing exactly? Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but first let's talk about a set of records that are often overlooked in genealogy research.
To care for me so tenderly.
I'm Nancy from Legacy Carvers. I like to tell stories, share a few tech tips, and inspire you to tell stories of your own, and I think you would be surprised at the family stories hiding in church newsletters and magazines where everyday stories, announcements, and even creative writing were preserved. A lot of these periodicals are now stored in online libraries, so today let's go on a short tour of the repository that I'm most familiar with, the Adventist archives. This is like spiritual time travel. I have lots of family in here. One of my ancestors resisted his wife's attempt to join church in a most dramatic way. Maybe we can find her, and who knows, maybe we'll even find Bill. So here's the website. First, you want to select Online Archives, and you can see here on the left is a list of documents to choose from. And then in the middle of the page, right here, we've got a large search box, and you can see some search instructions below that. And then up at the top is also a search box. I'm going to start by searching for myself. I know that's kind of self-absorbed, but it's also easy because I know myself. I'm going to keep it simple for now and search for my first and last name in quotation marks. And that means I want to find these exact words side by side. This obviously won't always work. Just like with old newspapers, you usually end up experimenting to see which search technique will work best. Now, here's where the real detective work begins. This is true of many library archives. There's so much here. Where should we start? Worst case, I could just go up to the search box and search across the whole site to help me get a better feel for what is here. But in this case, I know that one paper we got in the mail when I was a kid was the North Pacific Union Gleaner. So let's start with that. I'm going to select magazines and journals and then official SDA publications, and I'm going to scroll through this list till I find the Gleaner. Here it is. So I've selected that. And now we have some new filters over here on the left. And let's use these till we want dates after. Oh, let's start with anything newer than 1958. And then let's just press enter and see what comes up. I wonder if I'm in here. What do you think? Well, we got 4 hits, so let's open the first one. This is a PDF document. Inside a PDF, the fastest way to search is to click on Control F in Windows or Command F on a Mac. So let's do that and type Nancy in the search box. Okay, here I am, dressed in a scout uniform. I don't remember posing for this photo, but I do remember these ugly glasses. That was my first pair. And during these scout meetings, they would have us all stand at attention. And for that, you're supposed to keep your hands at your sides, right? But these glasses, they kept falling down my nose. And then I would stand there and try to figure out how to get them back up without using my hands. So I'd be doing this bit here. Super dignified, Olympic level nose scrunching. We're in a hallway somewhere in the basement of Mount Tabor Church, which was right across the street from the Portland Sanitarium and Hospital, or as we called it, the San. But enough about me. Let's move back and look for my mom's mother. This is Grandma Grace. I've searched for her before, so I think she'll be in here as Grace S. Olson. When searching for women, it makes sense to try multiple name combinations. The maiden name, the married name, or Mrs. followed by the husband's name. Let's open this and type Control F and search for Olson. But wait, this isn't her. If you look up here in the search box, you'll see that this is just the first occurrence of the word Olson in this particular issue. There are 6, so we just need to cycle through until we find her. And here she is. This is her death notice. Let's go back one more generation. Let's look for Grandma Grace's mother, Great-Grandma Mary. She's the matriarch who first joined this church. She had to fight for her right to join, but more on that in a minute. I think I'm going to start by just trying to search for her married name, Mary McGuffin. So let's type that in and press enter and see what comes up. I've mentioned this story before. Great-Grandma Mary's husband, John McGuffin, didn't want her to join the church, so he had kind of a temper tantrum. If I understand correctly, he chased her around the kitchen table with a butcher knife, and then he took her best dress outside and set it on fire. Sorry, Grandpa John, there are now about 6 generations of your descendants in this religion, so dress burning as a preemptive strike? Big fail. Just saying. Let's look at this one. Great-Grandma, what are you doing here? I think she's living in South Dakota and selling religious literature. People who did that in our church were called call porters, and whenever we prayed, we said, God bless the missionaries and the call porters. This is 1912. Mrs. Mary McGuffin is canvassing for Coming King and our 40% books in Miles City and other towns along the Milwaukee Railroad. This is Montana, which is right next to the Dakotas, so she's taken the train and selling books at all the stops, I guess. Now here we are. This is 10 years later, 1922, and she's still selling books. She worked 23 hours, got one order, and made $18.95. So I think that's about 82 cents per hour. If I keep looking, I can probably find more, but at this point, in just a few minutes of searching, I've found enough to add information to 3 generations of my family tree on my mom's side. And what about my dad? His name was Orland William Carver Jr., but most people called him Bill. Remember Bill back on the ship, docked in Australia, but not able to set foot on that new continent? Yeah, that's my dad. So let's do a broad search for William Carver, that's what he went by a lot, and see if we can find him, and maybe we'll find something exciting, or maybe there won't be any hits. What do you think? Okay, we have quite a few search results. They probably aren't all him, but these here that are marked Central Union Reaper, they have potential because I think that's the Midwest and he's from Nebraska. So 1934, that's the earliest listing I see. Dad would have been 24 years old, and what do you think he's trying to do for a living? It's too bad he doesn't know Great-Grandma at this point, so he could take some book-selling lessons from her because that's what he's trying to do. And it says he worked 41 hours and made $16.75. We're in the Great Depression now, and I bet most folks didn't have money for books, and I'll bet he didn't try this for very long. Now, this is 1943. That would be World War II. He's stationed overseas at this point, and this periodical is called The Youth's Instructor. It's got stories and object lessons for teenagers, so why would his name be in here? Well, okay, it's a poem. This is a surprise. I know he used to write for the Youth's Instructor, but I never saw any of the things he published. Dear Lord, how good it is of thee to claim me as thy very own. This is old-fashioned, it's not my style, and I just adore it because it's totally Dad. It's sincere, earnest, a young man in wartime turning to his faith. You remember Grandpa telling you stories like about the war and stuff?
Yes. Yes, sitting out there patiently, lovingly listening to my grandpa, taking care of him. No, I remember vividly listening to his stories. He did always start his sentences with, they're in.
They're in Cheyenne, they're in Japan, like that.
Was she who told me of thy love, and just the very reason why.
Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if he wrote this on the ship or not. I know the ship story's true. Only a few soldiers got to go ashore, and they were chosen through a lottery, and he was still irritated about not getting to see Australia 30 years later, but he might have written the poem during boot camp or at the 251st Field Hospital between shifts. I don't know. Dad was a conscientious objector. That means he didn't want to carry a gun or shoot people, but he was willing to serve as a medic. So other church members had similar stances on this, and he met several of them while he was serving. One of them was a 20-year-old kid named Ivan. Here's a photo. That's Dad on the far left and his buddy Ivan on the right. Now let's look at 1955. Dad would be 45 years old. Here he is in the back behind a bunch of kids in scouting outfits. Look familiar? Pretty similar to what I was wearing back in my scrunch up your glasses days. At this point in our time travel, Dad has finished college on the GI Bill and he's trying to master the art of teaching school. By 1955, he's been doing this for a few years, and soon he's going to quit and he's going to move to Portland, Oregon, where his buddy Ivan lives. Ivan works at the Portland Sand, and he gets Dad a job at the Sand, and Dad starts going to Mount Tabor Church. Ivan also has 2 single sisters-in-law, so he says to Dad, "Well, Bill, which one do you want to meet?" What is this next listing from 1958? Ah, yes, a wedding announcement. William Carver and Shirley Olson. They were married at Mount Tabor Church and had the reception across the street in a meeting room at the Portland Sand. Convenient if anyone needed emergency surgery during the toasts, huh? Here's where all these pieces start coming together to tell a bigger story. And I could go on and find many more relatives, but you get the basic idea. This is very similar to looking for family members in a small town newspaper when they all lived in the same town for a few generations. What shall I do with this information? Well, I can use it to shore up my family tree, of course, but let's say I want to use it to tell some stories. If you scan back through here, there are so many possibilities. Scouts, sellers of religious books, the army, ugly glasses. If church periodicals are relevant to your family's history, take the time to do some spiritual time travel. You never know what surprises you might uncover. Since I don't know much about other denominations, I went to the Family Search Wiki to see if they have a good guide to help you find similar repositories, and they do. So I'll include a link in the show notes so that you can find it.
If I should turn from thee aside.
Is that enough light? Okay. Okay, hello, Bill. Nice to see you on video, even if I can't be there. I wish you'd been out here. I can remember old times down in New Britain and Philippines, school in Japan.
Dear Lord, whose crown